Jackson Stone's gun hand. The same hand that had killed 17 men trembled as he lifted the infant from her dead mother's frozen arms. Blood crystallized on the baby's blue lips. She wasn't breathing. Behind him, 2 more children wailed in the smoking train wreckage, and the blizzard howled like God's own fury. He'd sworn 10 years ago he'd never hold a child again, never risk that kind of loss. But this baby's chest suddenly hitched, gasped, and her tiny fist grabbed his trigger finger like she was claiming him. Before we begin, hit that subscribe button and stick with me until the very end of this story. Comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this tale of redemption and second chances can travel. Now let's dive into a winter that changed everything. The Wyoming blizzard hit 2 hours before sunset, turning the world into a white hell that swallowed sound and sense. Jack Stone pushed Maverick through drifts that came up to the stallion's chest, cursing himself for ignoring the warning in the animal's behavior that morning. Every instinct he'd honed over 20 years on the frontier had screamed storm coming, but he'd been too focused on reaching Red River Crossing by nightfall. Now, nightfall didn't matter. Survival did. "Easy, boy," Jack muttered, patting Maverick's neck. The horse's breath came in harsh clouds. "Just need to find shelter. Cave overhang anything." The wind answered with a shriek that felt personal. Jack had seen bad weather before: tornadoes in Kansas, dust storms in Texas, floods that swallowed entire ranches, but this blizzard carried a malice that chilled more than just flesh. It felt like judgment. Like the universe finally decided a man who'd failed his family didn't deserve to see another spring. He was pulling his bandana higher over his face when Maverick suddenly balked, ears pinning back. "What is it?" The horse wouldn't move forward, just stood there, nostrils flaring, head tossing. Jack trusted Maverick's instincts more than his own. If the stallion sensed danger, there was danger. He slid from the saddle hand, moving automatically to the Colt Peacemaker at his hip, and squinted through the driving snow. Nothing but white. White above white, below white in every direction. Then he saw it. A shape. No multiple shapes. Dark against the snow-wrong angles that didn't belong to nature. Train wreckage. Jack's stomach dropped. He'd heard about the Northern Pacific running these routes, carrying settlers west, families chasing the same dream of land and freedom that had lured thousands before them. He'd never trusted trains too confined, too vulnerable, too many people packed together like cattle heading for slaughter. Looked like his distrust was justified. He led Maverick closer, and the wreckage resolved into nightmare clarity. 3 passenger cars derailed and burning despite the snow flames licking up through shattered windows. Bodies scattered like broken dolls. Blood painting the snow in abstract patterns that made Jack's war memories surge up unwelcome and vivid. "Christ," he breathed. He'd seen death before. Hell, he'd dealt death before. But something about this scene, the juxtaposition of family belongings scattered among corpses, a child's doll lying face down in bloody snow, Christmas presents torn open and trampled, hit different. How long ago had this happened? The bodies weren't frozen solid yet, so recent. Maybe an hour. 2 at most. Which meant whoever did this might still be close. Jack's hand tightened on his Colt. Raiders, probably. The kind that preyed on trains during blizzards when law enforcement couldn't respond, when survivors had nowhere to run. Cowards who targeted the helpless and called it business. He should ride on. Nothing here but death and danger, and a smart man avoided both when he could. Red River Crossing was still 10 miles north. If he pushed hard, he might reach it before the storm got worse. But Maverick still wouldn't move. The horse stood rigid, nostrils flaring toward the wreckage. "What?" Jack demanded. "You smell something." Then he heard it. Crying. Faint, almost lost in the wind, but unmistakable. A baby's wail, weak and desperate. Every muscle in Jack's body locked. His breath caught in his throat. For a moment, a terrible, vivid moment, he was back in that burning house in Austin, hearing his daughter Emma scream for him, while he stood frozen outside, held back by neighbors, because the fire was too hot, too fast, too consuming. Papa. Papa, help me. He'd failed her. Failed Caroline. Failed everyone who'd ever counted on him. No, he said aloud, to the memory, to the crying, to himself. No, damn it, no. But his feet were moving anyway, toward the wreckage, toward the crying, toward another chance to fail. The first two passenger cars were too damaged, too consumed by fire. Bodies everywhere, men, women, elderly. All of them cut down by bullets or blades efficient and brutal. Raiders didn't leave witnesses. The third car had derailed but not burned. Its side torn open like a tin can, but mostly intact. The crying came from inside. Jack climbed through the gap, Colt drawn every sense on high alert. The interior was chaos, overturned benches, shattered glass luggage, burst open and looted. More bodies. He counted 4 adults, all dead. The crying intensified. He found them in the back of the car, partially hidden under an overturned bench. 3 children. The source of the crying was an infant maybe 8 or 9 months old, wrapped in blankets that had once been white, but were now stained with blood. Her face was blue from cold, her cries weak. Next to her, a boy about 4 years old sat frozen, literally and figuratively. He stared at Jack with eyes too old for his face, tears crystallized on his cheeks. He had his arm around a girl maybe 6 who was clutching a rag doll and trembling so hard her teeth chattered audibly. And crouched over all 3 of them was a woman clearly dead, her body positioned protectively. She'd used herself as a shield, just like the massacre at the wagon train last summer that everyone still talked about. Jack holstered his gun and knelt down, his movements slow and deliberate. The 4-year-old flinched. Easy, Jack said, his voice rough from disuse and cold. I'm not here to hurt you. The boy didn't respond, just kept staring with those haunted eyes. Jack reached past him and so carefully moved the dead woman aside. She was young, maybe 30, with brown hair and a face that had probably been pretty before fear and death twisted it. A mother. These were her children. Ma'am, I'm sorry, he whispered, though she couldn't hear him. I'm so sorry. He picked up the infant first. She was so light it terrified him, like holding air wrapped in cloth. Her crying had faded to weak whimpers. Hypothermia probably. Maybe internal injuries. He couldn't tell without better light and warmth. You got a name, little one? He asked, though he knew she couldn't answer. The 6-year-old spoke instead, her voice barely a whisper. Grace. Her name is Grace. I'm Lily. That's Tommy. Jack looked at her. Really looked at her. This girl had watched her mother die. Watched her whole world end. And she was still holding it together enough to tell him names. Lily. Tommy. Grace. He repeated them like a prayer. I'm Jack. I'm going to get you somewhere warm, understand? Mama said. Lily's voice cracked. Mama said to find good people. She said God would send someone. The words hit Jack like a physical blow. God would send someone. As if he, a man who'd failed everyone who ever mattered, could be anyone's answer to prayer. Your mama was brave, he said, because that much was true. Real brave. Now I need you to be brave too. Can you do that? Lily nodded, though her whole body shook. Jack tucked Grace inside his coat against his chest, praying his body heat would be enough. Then he looked at Tommy and Lily. Can you walk? Tommy shook his head. His legs were pulled up, tight arms wrapped around his knees. Shock trauma, maybe frostbite. All right, new plan. Jack thought fast. Maverick could carry 2, maybe 3 if they were small. But in this storm, with the horse already tired, he made a decision. Lily, I need you to hold on to Grace. Keep her warm inside your coat, just like this. Can you do that? The girl nodded, taking the infant with surprising competence. Grace immediately quieted, as if she recognized another child's touch. Jack scooped Tommy up with his other arm. The boy was rigid as the bored eyes still staring at nothing. "Tommy, son, I need you to listen to me. You're safe now. Hear me. You're safe." No response. Jack carried both of them out of the wreckage, Lily following close behind. The blizzard had intensified visibility down to maybe 10 feet. Maverick stood where Jack had left him, loyal to the last. "Good boy," Jack said, and meant it more than he'd meant anything in years. He got them arranged in the saddle, Tommy in front of him, Lily and Grace tucked behind, all of them barely visible under blankets, and Jack's spare coat. It wasn't enough. Not nearly enough. But it would have to be. "Hold on tight," he told Lily. "No matter what, you hold on." "Where are we going?" she asked. Good question. Red River Crossing was still 10 miles away, and in this storm that might as well be 100. They'd never make it. He needed shelter now, or these children would die just as surely as their mother had. Think, damn it. Think. There. A memory surfaced, a line shack he'd passed maybe 2 miles back before the storm got bad. Old hunting cabin, barely more than 4 walls and a roof, but it would block the wind. Somewhere warm, Jack said, and hoped to God he was right. The ride took forever, and no time at all. Jack kept one hand on Tommy, one on Maverick's reins, hyper-aware of Lily and Grace behind him. Every gust of wind felt like it might blow them all away. The cold was beyond pain now. It was absence, a void that consumed feeling and thought. Tommy stayed rigid and silent. Grace whimpered occasionally. Lily didn't make a sound, but Jack could feel her grip on his coat, desperate and determined. When the line shack finally appeared through the white curtain, Jack nearly cried with relief. It was exactly as he remembered, small, dilapidated but intact. The door hung crooked on its hinges. He dismounted in stages, getting the children down first. His legs almost buckled when his feet hit the ground. How long had they been riding? An hour. Time had lost meaning. "Inside," he said, pushing the door open. "Now." The interior was dark, musty, and blessedly wind-free. Jack got them all inside, then went back for the saddlebags. His hands were so cold he could barely work the straps, but he managed. Inside, he had flint and steel, some jerky, a wool blanket. Not much, but something. Maverick whinnied a sound of pure misery. "I know, boy, I know." Jack led the horse to the sheltered side of the shack, where an overhang would provide minimal protection. It wasn't enough, but nothing about this situation was enough. "You've earned double oats when we reach civilization." Back inside, Jack dropped the saddlebags and finally let himself assess the situation. 3 children, all in various states of shock and hypothermia. 1 infant who might be injured internally. A blizzard that showed no signs of stopping. No food except dried meat. No water except snow. No medical supplies. No idea if raiders might still be tracking survivors. "We're going to die," Lily said flatly. She'd placed Grace on the floor and was staring at Jack with the same 2 old eyes her brother had. "Aren't we?" Jack looked at this 6-year-old who'd already seen too much, who'd lost everything, who had every reason to give up. "No," he said, and was surprised to hear certainty in his voice. "No, you're not. I won't let that happen." "You promise?" The word promise landed like a knife between his ribs. He hadn't promised anything to anyone in 10 years. Hadn't dared. Promises were for men who could keep them, and Jack Stone had proven he couldn't. But Lily was looking at him with desperate hope, and Tommy had finally focused on his face, and Grace had stopped whimpering and was just breathing. Tiny, fragile breaths. "I promise," Jack heard himself say. The first thing was fire. He gathered what little dry wood remained in the shack's corner. Previous occupants had left some, bless them, and worked his flint and steel with numb fingers until sparks caught. The fire was small, pitiful really, but it was warmth. It was hope. The children gravitated toward it immediately like moths. Jack arranged them close, wrapping them in the blanket. Grace he kept closest to the flames, terrified she'd stop breathing. "Are you hungry?" he asked. Lily nodded. Tommy still hadn't spoken, but his eyes tracked the jerky Jack pulled from his bag. Jack divided what he had, not much but protein and salt they desperately needed. He softened Grace's portion with melted snow, praying it wouldn't make her sick, and fed it to her in tiny amounts. She ate weakly, mechanically. "What happened?" he asked Lily as gently as he could. "At the train." The girl stared at the fire. "Men with masks. They stopped the train, shot the conductor. Papa tried to fight. They killed him. Then they killed everyone. Mama hid us under the bench, told us not to make a sound." Her voice was eerily calm, detached. "We heard gunshots, screaming, then fire. Mama covered us with her body. She was heavy. I couldn't breathe. Then it got quiet and cold, and she wasn't moving anymore." Jack's jaw clenched so hard his teeth ached. "How long ago?" "Don't know. Grace was crying. Then you came." So recent. Which meant the raiders had likely been thorough checking for survivors before the storm got bad. They'd missed these three somehow, a miracle or luck, or something Jack didn't want to name. "Your papa," Jack said carefully. "What was his name?" "John Carson. Mama was Mary. We were going to Red River Crossing. Papa had work there. Blacksmithing." John Carson. Jack would remember that name. Would make sure it got on a proper grave marker if he could. "Anyone else? Grandparents, aunts, uncles?" Lily shook her head. "Just us. Mama said we were pioneers, starting fresh." Starting fresh. They'd gotten death instead. Jack wanted to put his fist through something, but there was nothing to hit except frozen walls. Tommy finally spoke, his voice small and cracked. "Are you going to leave us?" The question gutted Jack. "No, son, I'm not leaving." "Papa left. Mama left." "They didn't want to," Jack said, and his throat tightened. "They didn't have a choice. But I do. And I'm choosing to stay." "Why?" Tommy asked. The question was genuine, innocent. "You don't know us." "Why?" Good question. Jack could feel the locket under his shirt, the one with Caroline and Emma's pictures. He'd carried it for 10 years, a talisman and a torture. "Because..." he started, then stopped. "How did you explain to a 4-year-old that you were trying to atone for the children you'd failed? That maybe if you saved these lives, it would somehow balance the scales? Because it's the right thing to do," he finished lamely. Lily studied him with those ancient eyes. "You're lying. Grown-ups always lie when they say it's the right thing. They mean because I have to, or because people are watching." Jack blinked, startled by her perception. "You're 6 years old. How do you know that?" "I listen. People think kids don't, but we do." She was right. Kids heard everything, saw everything, understood more than adults wanted to admit. Jack had learned that with Emma, who'd been 4 and sharper than any adult he knew. "All right," he said. "You want the truth? I'm here because 10 years ago I lost my daughter. She was 4 like Tommy. I was supposed to protect her, and I failed. So when I heard you crying, I couldn't walk away. Not again. Maybe that's selfish. Maybe I'm trying to fix something that can't be fixed. But that's the truth." Lily processed this. "What was her name?" "Emma." "Was she pretty?" "Prettiest thing I'd ever seen. Looked like her mama." "Did she like dolls?" Jack glanced at the rag doll Lily clutched. "She had one. Called it Miss Penelope. Carried it everywhere." "This is Miss Daisy," Lily said, holding up her doll. "Mama made her." The fire crackled. Outside, the wind howled. Grace made a small sound, and Jack adjusted her position so she'd stay warm. "I'm glad you didn't walk away," Lily said quietly. Something in Jack's chest cracked. Not broke, cracked. Like ice beginning to thaw. "Me too, sweetheart. Me too." They sat in silence for a while. The only sounds, the fire and the storm. Tommy gradually relaxed, his rigid posture softening. Grace's breathing steadied. Lily never let go of Miss Daisy. Jack kept watch, feeding the fire with the last of the wood. When that ran out, he'd have to decide stay and freeze or risk the storm to reach Red River Crossing. Neither option was good. Around midnight, Grace woke crying. Jack checked her as best he could. No fever, no obvious injuries, just cold and scared and missing her mother. He held her rocking gently and found himself humming a lullaby Caroline used to sing. He'd thought he'd forgotten the words, but they came back muscle memory of a life he'd lost. "Hush, little baby, don't say a word. Papa's gonna buy you a mockingbird." Lily watched him with surprise. "You know that song? My wife used to sing it." "Is she dead too?" Direct question. Deserved a direct answer. "Yeah, fire like your mama, but different circumstances." "Do you miss her?" "Every day." "Does it get better?" Jack thought about lying, giving her false hope, but Lily had asked for truth and she deserved it. "It gets different. Grief doesn't go away. You just learn to carry it." "I don't want to carry it. It's too heavy." "I know." Jack adjusted Grace, who'd calmed down and was falling back asleep. "But you won't carry it alone. That's the thing people don't tell you about grief. It's lighter when you share the load." "Will you help us carry it?" The question was so innocent, so hopeful, it nearly destroyed him. This little girl who'd lost everything hours ago was asking a broken stranger to help her bear unbearable weight. "Yeah," Jack said, his voice rough. "Yeah, I will. Promise." There it was again. That word. That terrible binding word. Jack looked at Lily's face, at Tommy dozing against her shoulder, at Grace sleeping in his arms. 3 children who had nothing and no one. 3 children who could have been Emma, who were somebody's Emma. "I promise," he said, and meant it with everything he had left. Lily smiled, tiny, fragile, but real. "Okay then." She curled up next to the fire, pulling Tommy close. Within minutes, both of them were asleep, exhaustion overcoming trauma. Jack sat watch, Grace warm against his chest. The baby's hand found his collar and gripped tight, and Jack felt tears, hot and unexpected, track down his cold cheeks. He'd failed Caroline, failed Emma, failed everyone. But maybe, just maybe, he could get this right. The blizzard raged outside. Inside the line shack, 4 broken souls huddled together against the dark. And for the first time in 10 years, Jack Stone didn't feel completely alone. "I won't let you down," he whispered to the sleeping children. To Emma's memory, to Caroline's ghost, to himself. "I swear it. I won't let you down again." The fire burned low. The storm continued, but morning would come, and Jack would be ready. The storm broke just before dawn, leaving behind a world wrapped in white silence. Jack hadn't slept, couldn't risk it with 3 children depending on him and a fire that needed constant feeding. He'd burned everything he could find in the shack, broken chair legs, part of the door frame, even one of his spare shirts, twisted into tight rolls that smoldered slow and hot. Grace stirred against his chest, making small, hungry sounds. Jack had nothing left to give her except melted snow, which he knew wasn't enough. The baby needed milk, proper warmth, medical attention. They all did. "How far to town?" Lily asked. She'd woken moments earlier, silent as a ghost, and was now watching him with those 2 old eyes. 10 miles, maybe 12 with the drifts." "That's far." "Yeah." "Will Grace make it?" The question was clinical, detached, like she was asking about the weather. Jack recognized the tone, survival mode emotions locked away where they couldn't hurt. He'd lived that way for 10 years. "She'll make it," he said, injecting confidence he didn't feel. "We all will." Tommy woke next, immediately reaching for Lily. The boy still hadn't spoken more than a few words since Jack found them. He just watched everything with wide, haunted eyes and clung to his sister like she was the only solid thing in a liquid world. Jack stood slowly, every muscle protesting. He was 39 but felt 70. We need to move. Storms passed, but another could come. This time of year, they hit in waves. I'm cold, Tommy whispered. I know, son. We'll get you somewhere warm soon. Outside, Maverick had survived the night, though the horse looked as worn as Jack felt. Ice crusted the stallion's mane and tail, and his breath came in labored clouds. You did good, boy, Jack said, checking the horse's legs for frostbite. Real good. Getting everyone mounted was a challenge. Grace had to stay inside Jack's coat, the only place warm enough to keep her alive. That meant Lily had to ride in front of him and Tommy behind all of them, bundled in what remained of the blankets. Hold on tight, Jack told them. Don't let go for nothing. The landscape had transformed overnight. What had been rocky terrain was now an endless white plain. Landmarks buried the trail invisible. Jack navigated by sun position and instinct, praying his sense of direction held. They rode in silence for the first hour. The cold was brutal, but at least the wind had died. Small mercies. Jack kept checking Grace, terrified each time that she'd stopped breathing. But the baby hung on tough as nails despite her size. Mr. Jack. Lily's voice was small against the vast silence. Just Jack is fine, sweetheart. Jack, do you think Mama and Papa are in heaven? There it was. The question every child who'd lost parents asked eventually. Jack had asked it himself when his own father died in a mining accident. He'd been 7. I do, he said, though theology had never been his strong suit. I think they're watching over you right now, real proud of how brave you've been. Papa said heaven has streets made of gold, and nobody's hungry or cold. Sounds about right. I hope they have Miss Penelope there, for your Emma. Jack's throat tightened. I hope so too. Tommy shifted behind him, finally speaking. Tell us about Emma, please. The request caught Jack off guard. He'd spent 10 years not talking about his daughter, not thinking about her beyond the guilt-soaked memories that ambushed him in the dark. But something about these children, their raw need for connection, for stories, for proof that loss didn't have to mean forgetting, cracked through his defenses. She was stubborn, Jack said. Lord, was she stubborn. Got that from her mama. Once she decided something, that was it. No changing her mind. What else? Lily pressed. She loved horses. Used to sneak Maverick sugar cubes. Well, not this Maverick, but the one before. She'd talk to him like he was people, tell him all her secrets. What kind of secrets? Kid secrets. Who she liked at school, what she wanted for Christmas. One time she told him she was going to run away and join the circus because I wouldn't let her have a puppy. Did she really run away? Tommy asked, interest sparking in his voice. Made it to the end of the street before she got hungry and came back. Caroline, my wife, had just baked apple pie. Emma never could resist apple pie. Lily laughed, a sound so unexpected and pure it nearly stopped Jack's heart. She sounds funny. She was. Funniest little thing you ever met. Jack paused, memories flooding back. Emma's gap-toothed smile, the way she stomped when she was angry, her absolute certainty that she could do anything boys could do, only better. She would have liked you two. Would have probably adopted you as honorary siblings and bossed you around something fierce. I wouldn't mind, Lily said softly. Being bossed around sounds nice. Mama used to tell me what to do all the time. I hated it. Her voice cracked. Now I'd give anything to hear her say, Lily May, pick up those toys one more time. Jack's hand found her shoulder and squeezed. I know, sweetheart. I know. They rode on. The sun climbed higher, reflecting off snow with blinding intensity. Jack squinted against it, searching for landmarks. There, a rocky outcropping he recognized. They were on the right track. Around midday, Tommy spoke again. Jack, are you going to keep us? The question landed like a punch. What do you mean? When we get to town, are you going to leave us there? Give us to someone else? Jack hadn't thought that far ahead. His entire focus had been on survival, getting these children to safety, to warmth, to civilization. What happened after? I don't know, he admitted. I'm not exactly father material son. I'm a bounty hunter. I track bad men for money. That's no life for kids. But you promised, Lily said, and there was accusation in her young voice. You promised you'd help us carry it. The grief. And I will. But that doesn't mean you're going to leave us. Her words were flat certain. Just like everyone says, you'll take us to town, hand us over to strangers, and ride away, because that's what grown-ups do. Lily, it's fine. She straightened in the saddle, pulling away from his touch. I understand. We're not your problem. You did your duty, and that's enough. More than most would do. The clinical detachment was back, emotional walls slamming into place. Jack recognized the defense mechanism because he'd perfected it himself. Don't feel, don't hope, don't expect anything from anyone. That way you can't be disappointed. It's not like that, Jack said, but the words sounded hollow even to him. Then what's it like? Lily challenged. Tell me. Explain how you're different from the social workers who'll put us in an orphanage or the church, ladies who'll split us up because it's easier to place one child than three, or the people who'll take us in until we're too much trouble and then send us back. How do you know about all that? Mama told me, after Papa lost his job in Kansas and we had to move. She said if anything ever happened to them, Tommy and Grace and me would probably get separated because nobody wants 3 kids at once. She said the system doesn't care about keeping families together. Jack wanted to argue to tell her that wasn't true, but he'd seen enough of frontier orphanages to know she was right. Resources were thin, charity thinner. 3 siblings would be seen as a package deal nobody could afford. I won't let that happen, he heard himself say. You can't stop it. You're just one person. One person who's meaner than a rattlesnake and twice as stubborn when he decides something needs doing. Jack surprised himself with the vehemence in his voice. Your mama wanted you with good people. She said God would send someone. Maybe I'm not good, hell, I'm probably the opposite, but I showed up. And I don't go back on my word. You said you weren't father material. I'm not, but maybe I can learn to be. Lily twisted to look at him, skepticism clear on her small face. Why would you do that? Because 10 years ago he'd frozen outside a burning house while his daughter screamed for him. Because he'd spent a decade running from responsibility, from connection, from anything that might hurt if he lost it. Because 3 children had looked at him with hope, and he couldn't bear to be one more person who let them down. Because you need someone, Jack said simply. And I need to not be useless anymore. Tommy's arms tightened around his waist. Lily studied him for a long moment, then nodded once. Okay, but if you change your mind, tell us first. Don't just leave in the middle of the night. Deal. They continued riding. Grace woke crying, and Jack stopped to let Lily try feeding her more snow water. The baby drank weakly, her skin still too pale, her breathing too shallow. She needed real help soon, or she wouldn't make it. How much longer? Lily asked, voicing what they were all thinking. Couple more hours, maybe less. Jack scanned the horizon, looking for the landmarks that would indicate they were close. There's a ridge up ahead. Once we crest that, we'll be able to see Red River Crossing. What if they don't want us there? They'll want you. Towns this far out, they welcome settlers. Your papa would have been valuable, a blacksmith's always needed. Papa's dead. The blunt statement hung in the air. Jack didn't have a response that wouldn't sound like platitude. They reached the ridge an hour later. Jack's relief at seeing Red River Crossing spread below them was tempered by Lily's sharp intake of breath. It's small, she said. Small was generous. Red River Crossing was maybe 40 buildings clustered around a main street, with scattered homesteads dotting the surrounding area. It looked like a strong wind could blow it away, exactly the kind of place Jack usually avoided. Size doesn't matter, he said. What matters is whether they have a doctor. They descended the ridge carefully, Maverick picking his way through drifts. As they approached town, a few people emerged from buildings drawn by the sight of a rider with children. Jack headed straight for what looked like the main street, searching for a doctor's shingle. Instead, a woman stepped directly into his path, arms crossed. She was maybe 35-40, wearing practical clothes and an expression that could cut glass. Dark hair pulled back, severe eyes that missed nothing. "That's far enough," she said. "Who are you and what's your business?" "Jack Stone. I've got 3 children here who need help. Found them in train wreckage about 12 miles south. They need a doctor, food warmth." The woman's expression shifted from suspicion to alarm. "The Northern Pacific? We heard it was overdue, but thought the storm delayed it. Train was attacked. Raiders. Everyone dead except these 3. A murmur ran through the gathering crowd. More people emerged, a man in a sheriff's badge, an older woman in an apron, several others. "Get Doc Sullivan," the first woman ordered, and someone ran. She approached Maverick, looking up at the children. "You poor things, let's get you inside. I'm Josie Fletcher, I run the boarding house. You'll stay there." Jack dismounted stiffly, every joint protesting. He handed Grace down to Josie, who took the baby with practiced competence. "This one needs immediate attention." Josie said, her voice sharp with concern. "She's half frozen and barely breathing." "I know. That's why I pushed hard to get here." Lily and Tommy climbed down, both of them staying close to Jack. The crowd pressed closer, everyone talking at once, asking questions, expressing shock and sympathy. "Give them space." The sheriff pushed through, a tall man with gray hair and a weathered face. "I'm Ben Crawford, town sheriff. You said raiders." "Masked men. Professional job. They hit fast, took what they wanted, killed witnesses. This was maybe 14-15 hours ago." Crawford's jaw tightened. "We've had reports of a gang working the territory. Call themselves the Black Ridge Boys. They hit when weather's bad, law can't respond quick. These kids' parents were John and Mary Carson. He was a blacksmith coming here for work." "I know. I'm the one who sent word we needed a smithy." Crawford looked stricken. "God in heaven. They were supposed to arrive yesterday, but the storm—" A woman burst through the crowd, medical bag in hand. She was younger than Jack expected for a doctor, mid-30s maybe. Dark hair escaping from a bun. Sharp, intelligent eyes behind wire-rimmed spectacles. "I'm Dr. Rebecca Sullivan," she said, all business. "Show me the patients." Josie handed Grace over. Sullivan examined the baby with quick efficiency, her face growing grimmer by the second. "Severe hypothermia, possible internal injuries, definitely malnourished. I need to get her to my clinic immediately." She looked at Lily and Tommy. "You two come with me. I need to check you as well." "I want Jack." Tommy said the first complete sentence he'd spoken to anyone else. Sullivan's eyes flicked to Jack. "You the one who found them?" "Yes, ma'am." "Then you come too. I'll have questions." She strode off without waiting for agreement, Grace bundled against her chest. Jack followed with Lily and Tommy, leaving Maverick with a stable boy who'd appeared out of nowhere. Sullivan's clinic was a small adobe building at the edge of town, warmer and cleaner than Jack expected. She laid Grace on an examination table and began stripping away the baby's frozen clothes. "Get those 2 by the fire," she ordered Jack, gesturing to a pot-belly stove in the corner. "Strip them down, wrap them in those blankets there. I need to see if there's frostbite." Jack did as instructed, trying to maintain the children's modesty while getting them warm. Lily cooperated silently, but Tommy wouldn't let go of Jack's hand. "It's okay, son," Jack said gently. "Doc needs to make sure you're healthy." "She's scary," Tommy whispered. Sullivan heard him. Without looking up from Grace, she said, "I'm not scary, I'm competent. There's a difference. And right now, competent is what your sister needs." Jack had to smile at that. He liked her already. For the next hour, Sullivan worked with focused intensity. She examined Grace thoroughly, applied warming compresses, administered something she said would help with shock. Then she checked Lily and Tommy, declaring them bruised and traumatized, but physically intact. "They'll need watching," she told Jack, washing her hands in a basin. "Especially the baby. Next 48 hours are critical. She's young, she's been through hell, and her system's shutting down. If we can stabilize her temperature and get fluids in her, she's got a chance. And if we can't," Sullivan met his eyes directly, "then you'll have 2 children to worry about instead of 3. Lily gasped. Tommy started crying. Jack wanted to throttle the doctor for her bluntness, but he recognized brutal honesty when he heard it. Sullivan wasn't being cruel, she was being realistic. "Grace is strong," Jack said, as much for the children as himself. "She survived that train wreckage, survived the storm. She'll survive this." "Survival isn't about strength, Mr. Stone. It's about luck, and timing, and resources." Sullivan pulled off her spectacles, cleaning them with a cloth. "But I'll do everything I can. That's my job." "What do we owe you?" "We'll discuss payment later. Right now these children need rest food and stability. Josie's boarding house will be suitable for the older 2, but the baby needs constant monitoring. She'll stay here." "No," Lily's voice was firm. "We stay together." "That's not practical." "I don't care about practical." Lily stood small but fierce. "Grace is my sister. Tommy's my brother. We don't get separated. Ever." Sullivan looked at the 6-year-old with something like respect. "You're a bossy little thing, aren't you?" "Mama said I got that from her." "Your mama was right," Sullivan sighed. "Fine. You can all stay here. But you follow my rules: no running, no loud noises, no interfering with treatment. Understood?" "Yes, ma'am." "And you," Sullivan turned to Jack. "You're staying too, I assume?" "Where else would I go?" Most men would have dumped these children with the first authority figure they found and rode off. The fact that you're still here is either admirable or stupid. "Probably stupid," Jack admitted. "Good. Stupid I can work with. Admirably noble people tend to be useless in a crisis." She gestured to a corner. "There's bedding there. Make yourself comfortable. It's going to be a long night." She was right about that. Grace's condition fluctuated wildly. 1 hour she'd seem better, the next she'd slip back toward that gray zone between life and death. Sullivan worked tirelessly, checking vitals, adjusting treatments, murmuring medical terms Jack didn't understand. Lily and Tommy dozed fitfully by the fire. Jack stayed awake, watching over all of them, his hand never far from his Colt. Old habits died hard, and despite the clinic's safety part of him, expected danger at any moment. Around midnight, Sullivan finally sat down, exhaustion evident in every line of her body. "You should rest," Jack said quietly. "So should you." "I'll rest when I'm dead." "That could be sooner than you think if you don't sleep." She poured herself coffee from a pot on the stove. "How long have you been awake?" "Day and a half, maybe longer, lost track." "You're useless to those children if you collapse from exhaustion." "I'm fine." Sullivan studied him over her coffee cup. "You're not fine. You're running on pure stubbornness and guilt. But that'll only carry you so far." Jack bristled. "You don't know anything about me. I know you found 3 orphaned children in a blizzard, and instead of leaving them to die, which would have been easier, you risked your life to save them. I know you made promises you're terrified you can't keep. I know you're haunted by something in your past, and you see these children as a chance at redemption." She took a sip of coffee. "Am I wrong? You always this direct with strangers?" "Only the interesting ones. Most people are boring. You're not boring." "Not sure if that's a compliment." "Take it however you like." Sullivan stood, checking Grace's pulse. "She's stabilizing. If she makes it through the night, odds improve significantly. And if she doesn't, then you'll have to tell those 2 children that their baby sister died despite everyone's best efforts. And you'll have to live with that. Just like you live with whatever happened to your own child." Jack's hand moved instinctively to the locket under his shirt. Sullivan noticed. "Lost a daughter," she said. It wasn't a question. 10 years ago. "And you've been punishing yourself ever since." Wouldn't you— Sullivan was quiet for a moment. I lost my fiancé. Cancer. Watched him waste away over 6 months while my medical training proved completely useless. Couldn't save him. Couldn't even ease his pain at the end. She set down her coffee. So yes, I understand guilt. I understand the desperate need to fix something, anything to prove you're not completely useless. But here's what I learned: you can't fix the past. You can only do better in the present. That what you're doing better in the present? Trying. Some days are easier than others. She moved to check on Lily and Tommy. These children are lucky to have you, Mr. Stone, whether you believe it or not. Before Jack could respond, Grace made a sound, not crying, but something between a whimper and a cough. Sullivan was at her side, instantly checking, adjusting, murmuring soft reassurances. Come here, she said to Jack. Hold her hand. Sometimes human contact helps. Jack approached hesitantly. Grace looked so small on the adult-sized table, so fragile. Her hand was tiny in his calloused palm, but her grip was surprisingly strong. That's it, Sullivan said. She knows you're here. That matters. They stood like that for several minutes, Jack holding the baby's hand, while Sullivan monitored her breathing. Slowly, incrementally, Grace's color improved. Her breathing steadied. Her grip on Jack's finger relaxed slightly, as if she'd decided he could be trusted. There, Sullivan said softly. She's through the worst of it. Barring complications, she'll survive. Relief hit Jack like a wave. His knees actually buckled, and he had to grab the table for support. Easy, Sullivan said, steadying him. When's the last time you ate? Don't remember. Right, that settles it. You're eating, then sleeping. I'll watch the children. But no arguments. You're no good to anyone if you collapse. And despite my generally prickly demeanor, I do actually know how to care for children. It's literally my job. She was right, of course. Jack's body was shutting down, adrenaline finally depleted. He forced himself to eat the bread and cheese she provided, then collapsed onto the bedding in the corner. The last thing he saw before sleep claimed him was Sullivan sitting by Grace's table, keeping watch. And for the first time in 10 years, Jack Stone slept without nightmares. Jack woke to voices, low, urgent, wrong. His hand found his Colt before his eyes fully opened, instinct overriding the fog of exhaustion. Morning light filtered through the clinic windows, painting everything in pale gold. Sullivan stood by the door talking to Sheriff Crawford. Their body language screamed tension. Can't be sure it's them, Crawford was saying. You just told me a gang's been working this territory. The same gang that likely hit that train. You think it's coincidence they're camped 5 miles from here? Jack sat up slowly, every muscle protesting. Lily and Tommy were still asleep by the fire, wrapped in blankets. Grace lay on her table, breathing easier than last night, but still fragile. What's going on? Jack asked, voice rough from sleep. Crawford turned. Mr. Stone, glad you're awake. We've got a situation. What kind of situation? The kind with guns and bad intentions. Sullivan's voice was clipped angry. Tell him Ben. Crawford shifted uncomfortably. My deputy rode in an hour ago. He'd been checking the northern homesteads, making sure folks weathered the storm okay. On his way back, he spotted a camp in Dead Man's Canyon. 8, maybe 10 men, heavily armed, keeping watch like they're expecting trouble. Jack's blood went cold. The raiders. We don't know that for certain. Yes, we do. Jack stood checking his Colt cylinder automatically. They hit the train, thought they killed everyone. But they were thorough men, professionals. They'll have checked afterward, made sure. Once the storm cleared, they'd have gone back to verify no witnesses survived. And found the train wreckage empty, Sullivan finished. 3 children missing, which means someone took them. Which means they'll come looking. Jack moved to the window, scanning the street. Early morning, few people about. No obvious threats, but that meant nothing. How far is this canyon? 5 miles northeast, Crawford said. It's good defensive position, high walls only one way in or out. If they're there, they chose it deliberate. They're waiting, Jack said. Watching to see if we bring children to town. Probably got someone observing from the ridges reporting back. Sullivan's face paled. You're saying they know the children are here? I'm saying they will soon if they don't already. Professional killers don't leave witnesses. Not ever. Those children saw faces, heard voices. Even if they're too young to testify in court, raiders don't take chances. Lily stirred by the fire, blinking awake. Jack. What's wrong? Nothing, sweetheart. Just talking with the sheriff. But Lily wasn't fooled. She sat up, eyes sharp. The bad men. They're coming for us, aren't they? The room went silent. Tommy woke at his sister's words, immediately pressing close to her. We won't let anyone hurt you, Crawford said, but his voice lacked conviction. How many deputies you got? Jack asked. 2. One's barely 20, others pushing 60. Neither one's what you'd call a fighter. Town have a militia. We're frontier folk, Mr. Stone. Everyone's armed but organized defense numb. We've never needed it before. Jack bit back a curse. You need it now. How many able-bodied men in town? Maybe 30 who can shoot straight. But these are farmers, shopkeepers, family men. They're not killers. Neither are the children, but that won't stop what's coming. Jack turned to Sullivan. Is there another way out of town? Back trails, anything. The south road, but it snowed over. You'd need horses' supplies, and even then. She shook her head. That baby can't travel. Not yet. Moving her now would kill her as surely as any bullet. Jack looked at Grace, so small and fragile, on that table. Then at Lily and Tommy, fear written across their young faces. He'd promised to protect them. Promised they'd be safe. Then we make a stand, he said quietly. Against 10 trained killers. Crawford's voice pitched higher. That's suicide. Maybe, but what's the alternative? Hand over 3 orphans to be murdered. Watch good people die because we were too scared to fight. I have a responsibility to this town. And I have a responsibility to those children. Jack's voice went hard. You want to evacuate civilians, do it. Get women and children away from Main Street. But I'm staying, and I'm putting down anyone who tries to hurt these kids. Sullivan stepped forward. I'm staying too. This is my clinic, my patient. I don't abandon either. Becca, Crawford started. Don't. You know me better than that, Ben. The sheriff looked between them, then at the children, then sighed. You're both crazy. But I reckon if you're staying, I am too. Can't let civilians fight my battles. He adjusted his gun belt. I'll gather whoever's willing. Set up positions on Main Street. If they come, we'll be ready. They'll come, Jack said with certainty. Question is when. Crawford left to organize the town's defense. Sullivan immediately began moving supplies, setting up a makeshift infirmary in the back room. If shooting starts, that's where I'll take the children, she said, hauling blankets. Interior walls are thicker, fewer windows. Safest place in the building. Jack helped her, his mind racing through scenarios. 8 to 10 raiders, all professionals. Against maybe 30 townspeople, most of whom had probably never shot anything besides deer. The math didn't favor survival. Jack. Lily's voice was small. This is because of us, isn't it? He knelt in front of her, meeting her eyes. This is because bad men did bad things. Not your fault. Never your fault. But if we weren't here, if you weren't here, you'd be dead in that wreckage. Is that what you want? No, but no buts. You're here, you're alive, and you're staying that way. I promised your mama, and I keep my promises. Tommy threw his arms around Jack's neck, sobbing. I don't want anyone else to die. Not you, not the doctor lady, not anyone. Jack held him tight, feeling the boy's terror like a physical weight. Sometimes good people have to fight bad people. That's just how the world works. but we're going to be smart about it. Hear me, smart and careful." "Papa said that," Tommy whispered, "before the bad men came. He said he'd keep us safe. Then they killed him." The words gutted Jack. What could you say to a child who'd watched his father fail? Who'd learned the hard way that promises meant nothing against bullets? "Your papa did keep you safe," Jack said gently. "He fought so you'd have time to hide. He gave you a chance. That's what fathers do. They buy their children time, even if it costs everything." "Will you die too?" "Not planning on it." Papa didn't plan on it either. Sullivan knelt beside them. "Tommy, look at me. Jack's not your papa. He's a different kind of man. The kind who spent 20 years learning exactly how to not die. Trust me, I've seen his type too stubborn to quit and too mean to kill. If anyone's walking away from this, it's him." She said it with such conviction that Tommy actually seemed to believe it. Hell, Jack almost believed it himself. The morning crept forward with agonizing slowness. Crawford returned with news 23 men willing to fight positioned in buildings along Main Street. Women and children evacuated to the church at the far end of town. Food and medical supplies stockpiled. "Best we can do on short notice," the sheriff said. "My deputy's watching the canyon approach. He'll signal if they move." "How?" "Mirror flashes. We set up a relay system." Jack nodded approval. At least they'd have warning. "What about backstop? Anyone watching in case they try to flank?" "Got 2 men on the ridge east of town. If raiders try circling around, we'll know." "Good. Now we wait." Waiting was always the hardest part. Jack had learned that in the war, the anticipation before battle was worse than the battle itself. Your imagination conjured horrors worse than reality, your body flooded with adrenaline that had nowhere to go. He checked his weapons. Colt Peacemaker fully loaded. Winchester rifle he'd borrowed from Crawford, 20 rounds. Knife in his boot. Not much against 10 men, but he'd survived worse odds. Lily watched him prepare with ancient eyes. "You're scared." Smart people are always scared before a fight. Fear keeps you sharp. Papa wasn't scared. He was angry. Anger gets you killed. Fear keeps you alive. Jack finished loading the Winchester. "Remember that, Lily. When you're old enough to fight your own battles, be scared. Use it." "I am scared. All the time now." "I know, sweetheart. But you're still standing. Still taking care of your brother and sister. That's courage, being scared but doing what needs doing anyway." "Is that what you're doing?" "Being brave." Jack considered lying, giving her some noble answer. But Lily deserved truth. "I'm terrified. Not of dying, I made peace with that years ago. I'm terrified of failing you 3. Of breaking another promise. Of being too slow, or too stupid, or too unlucky, and watching you die because I wasn't good enough." "You're good enough," Lily said fiercely. "You saved us. You're still saving us." "I haven't saved anyone yet. We're still in the middle of this." "But you didn't run away. That counts." It did count, Jack supposed. He'd spent 10 years running from responsibility, from pain, from anything that mattered. And now, when every instinct screamed to grab Maverick and ride hard in the opposite direction he was staying. Growth. Caroline would have called it. Stupidity, his own mind countered. The signal came at noon, 3 mirror flashes from the ridge. Company approaching. "How many?" Crawford asked the runner who brought word. Deputy counted 8 riders. All armed. Moving casual like they own the place. "That's them," Jack said. "They're confident. Probably figure we're just farmers who'll hand over the children rather than fight." "They figured wrong." Crawford checked his rifle. "Everyone to positions. No one shoots until I give the word." Jack turned to Sullivan. "Get the children to the back room. Now." "Already on it." She'd packed Grace in a basket padded with blankets and was herding Lily and Tommy toward the interior room. "You 3 stay put, stay quiet, and don't come out for anything. Understand?" "What if the bad men come in?" Tommy asked. Sullivan pulled a small pistol from her medical bag. "Then they'll discover that lady doctors aren't as defenseless as they look." Jack had to smile at that. "You know how to use that." "My father taught me before I left Boston. Said a woman traveling alone needed protection." She checked the cylinder. "I've never shot a person. But for these children, I'll do what's necessary." "Let's hope it doesn't come to that." He took up position by the front window, where he had a clear view of Main Street. Crawford crouched behind cover across the way. Other defenders hid in buildings behind water troughs anywhere that offered protection. The street was empty, silent. Snow muffled everything, creating an eerie quiet that made Jack's skin crawl. Then they appeared, 8 riders just like the deputy said. They rode in formation, professional and disciplined. All wore long coats against the cold, but Jack could see gun belts underneath. Rifles in saddle scabbards. These were men who lived by violence. The leader was obvious, rode at the front, older than the others, face scarred and weathered. He raised a hand and they stopped in the middle of Main Street, 50 yards from the clinic. "We're looking for 3 children," the leader called out, voice carrying in the cold air. "Found at a train wreckage yesterday. We mean them no harm. They belong to family. We're escorting back east. Just want to collect what's ours and be on our way." Lies, all of it. But delivered with such conviction that Jack could see how ordinary people might believe it. Crawford emerged from cover, badge visible. "I'm Sheriff Crawford. This town don't take kindly to armed strangers making demands. You got legal claim to those children, you show me papers. Otherwise, move along." The leader's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Sheriff, let's not complicate things. We've got 8 guns here. How many you got? 20, 30 farmers with hunting rifles?" He shook his head. "That's not a fight you want. Hand over the children, nobody dies today." "Can't do that. Those children are under protection of the law until we verify their situation." "The law?" The leader laughed. "Sheriff, we're 50 miles from any real law. Out here, law's just whoever's got the most guns, and right now, that's us." "That's where you're wrong," Jack called out, stepping into view. "See, you're counting wrong. You got 8, we got 23, plus me. And I'm worth at least 5 of your boys on my worst day." The leader's eyes narrowed. "You the one who took those kids from the wreckage? I found 3 orphans freezing to death. Did what any decent person would do." "Decent." The word dripped with mockery. Decent would be minding your own business. What you did was interfere in professional matters. Now we got to clean up loose ends, and that's just annoying. "Professional matters." Jack's voice went cold. "You mean murdering families for their valuables? Real professional. Business is business. Nothing personal." "It got personal when you made 3 children orphans, when you killed their parents in front of them, when you decided witness elimination was easier than leaving survivors." Jack's hand drifted toward his Colt. "So here's what's going to happen. You turn around, ride out, and never come back. Do that and maybe you live to raid another day." The leader's smile vanished. "Or what you'll shoot. You really think you're fast enough to take all 8 of us?" "No," Jack admitted. "I'll probably only get 4, maybe 5 if I'm lucky. But the other 23 townspeople, they'll get the rest of you. Mathematics are simple. You all die, some of us die. Question is whether you're willing to pay that price." For a long moment, nobody moved. The tension stretched taut as a wire, one spark away from exploding into violence. Then, one of the raiders, younger than the others, maybe 20, shifted in his saddle. "Boss, maybe we should—" "Shut up." The leader's eyes never left Jack. "You're bluffing. These townspeople won't fight. They got families, businesses, things to lose. The moment bullets start flying, they'll run." "You willing to bet your life on that?" Crawford called out. "Because we are. Those children survived hell to get here. We don't let evil win just because it's easier." "Evil." The leader spat in the snow. "You don't know nothing about evil, old man. You sit in your safe little town playing at law and order. We live in the real world where strength matters and weakness gets you killed. Then I guess we'll see who's stronger, Jack said quietly. The moment crystallized. Jack could see it in the leader's eyes, the calculation, the weighing of odds, the decision being made. These were professional killers, but they were also survivors. And survivors knew when a fight wasn't worth the cost. This ain't over, the leader finally said. Those children saw faces, heard names. Can't let that stand. Try coming for them again and you'll be dead before you reach Main Street, Jack promised. That's not a threat. That's simple fact. The leader pulled his horse around. His men followed, but Jack noted they kept hands near weapons ready for ambush. Smart and disciplined. Dangerous. They rode out slowly, deliberately, a show of controlled withdrawal rather than retreat. But they were leaving, and that's what mattered. Crawford waited until they crested the ridge before stepping out fully. Think they're really gone? No, Jack said. They'll be back. Tonight probably, when it's dark and they can use stealth instead of intimidation. Then we keep watch. Rotate shifts, stay alert. They'll probe for weaknesses, try to find a way in that doesn't involve direct assault. Jack's mind raced through possibilities. We need to fortify the clinic, board up windows, reinforce the doors, and we need an escape route if things go bad. Sullivan emerged from the back room, children in tow. Everyone all right? For now, Jack said. But they'll be back. Lily looked up at him with those two old eyes. Why don't they just give up? We're just kids. Because you saw them, Jack said gently. You're witnesses, and in their world, witnesses are death sentences. They can't risk you identifying them someday. But I don't even remember what they look like. Everything happened so fast and I was hiding and... She stopped. I was hiding. Tommy was hiding. We didn't see their faces at all. Jack's heart sank as he realized what she was saying. But they don't know that. They can't take the chance. So we die because of something we can't even do. Lily's voice was flat. That's not fair. No, it's not. But fair doesn't matter to men like that. Jack knelt down. What matters is keeping you alive long enough for them to give up or get caught. That's all we have to do, survive. For how long? As long as it takes. Sullivan touched Jack's shoulder. We should prepare. If they're coming back tonight, we need supplies, defenses, a plan. She was right. Jack spent the afternoon turning the clinic into a fortress. They boarded windows, stacked furniture against doors, created firing positions with good sightlines. Crawford brought more ammunition, food, water. Other townspeople contributed blankets, medicine, anything that might help. Mrs. Fletcher, the boarding house owner, arrived with a basket of food. For the children, she said gruffly. Nobody should face danger on an empty stomach. Lily and Tommy ate mechanically, but Jack noticed they finished everything. Good. They'd need strength for whatever came next. Grace remained stable, though still weak. Sullivan checked her, constantly adjusting treatments, murmuring encouragement. The baby seemed to be improving, color returning to her cheeks, breathing steady. She's a fighter, Sullivan said, changing Grace's blankets. Like her siblings. Like their mama, Jack said. Takes strength to use your body as a shield. Takes love. You think about that a lot. Sacrifice. Protection. It's what parents do. What they're supposed to do. Jack touched the locket under his shirt. I didn't get the chance. Fire moved too fast. By the time I realized Carolyn and Emma were inside, it was too late. You weren't there. I was out back checking on something in the barn. Heard Emma scream, ran around front, and the whole house was already engulfed. Neighbors held me back, said I'd die if I went in. His voice went hollow. So I watched. Listened to my daughter scream for me while I stood there doing nothing. Sullivan was quiet for a long moment. And you've spent 10 years punishing yourself for surviving. Wouldn't you? I don't know, maybe. Grief does strange things to people. She finished with Grace's blankets. But I know this, Emma wouldn't want you suffering. Children never want their parents to hurt because of them. How would you know? You said you lost your fiancé, not a child. No, but I've delivered dozens of babies, watched new mothers look at their children for the first time. And you know what I see in those moments? Pure love. Not conditional, not earned, just absolute devotion. That's what Emma felt for you. And children who love like that don't want their parents drowning in guilt. Jack wanted to argue to maintain his carefully constructed wall of self-flagellation. But Sullivan's words hit too close to truth. Emma had loved him fiercely, unconditionally. Would she want him spending a decade in self-imposed exile? Maybe, he said quietly. But I can't change the past. Can only try to do better now. Then do better. Keep these children alive. Give them a chance at life their parents couldn't give them. Sullivan met his eyes. That's how you honor Emma, by being the father these orphans need. Before Jack could respond, a shout came from outside. Crawford appeared at the door, breathing hard. They're moving. Deputy just signaled raiders are splitting up. 4 heading east, 4 heading west. They're going to flank us. Jack cursed. Smart. Hit from multiple directions, divide our forces. How long do we have? Hour, maybe less. Sun's setting. They'll attack in the dark. Then we adjust. Pull defenders back, concentrate around the clinic. Let them take the town. We only need to hold this building. But the other buildings, the businesses, can be rebuilt. Those children can't. Jack checked his weapons. We make our stand here. Final stand if necessary. Crawford nodded slowly. I'll spread the word. God help us all. God's not here, Jack said. Just us. And we'll have to be enough. Darkness fell like a curtain, sudden and absolute. Jack positioned himself at the front window, Winchester in hand, watching shadows shift in the blue-black snow. Behind him, Sullivan had moved the children to the reinforced back room, Grace's basket wedged between supply crates where it would be safest. Crawford crouched at the side window, his deputy, a kid named Martin, who looked barely old enough to shave at the back door. 15 other townsmen had volunteered to stay despite the danger. The rest had withdrawn to the church with their families ready to evacuate if things went bad. Can't see a damn thing, Crawford muttered. That's the point. Jack's eyes tracked movement, or thought he did. Hard to tell if it was raiders or just wind-blown snow. They'll probe first. Test our defenses, look for weak spots. Then they'll hit hard where we're thinnest. How do you know so much about this? Same way you learn anything, experience and not dying. Jack shifted his grip on the Winchester. Fought in the war, tracked outlaws after. You learn patterns. These men are professionals, which means they're predictable. Discipline makes you effective, but also makes you follow doctrine. A sound, scraping subtle, came from the east side. Martin spun toward it, rifle raised. Hold, Jack said quietly. Don't shoot unless you've got a clear target. They want us to waste ammunition, panic. More sounds now coming from multiple directions. Footsteps in snow, the creak of leather, whispered voices that might have been imagination. Then gunfire erupted from the north. They're hitting the mercantile. Crawford moved toward the door. Stop. Jack's voice cracked like a whip. That's a feint. They want us to abandon position, investigate. We hold here. But those people. Already evacuated. There's nothing there but empty buildings. Jack kept his eyes on the street. They're testing us, seeing if we'll break formation. The gunfire continued for another minute, then stopped. Silence rushed back in, heavier than before. Lily appeared in the doorway to the back room, Miss Daisy clutched tight. Jack, I'm scared. I know, sweetheart, but you need to stay back there with the doctor. Tommy won't stop crying. He thinks you're going to die. I'm not dying tonight. Got too many reasons to live. Jack glanced at her. You tell Tommy that. Tell him I made a promise, and Jack Stone doesn't break promises twice in one lifetime. Lily nodded and withdrew. Jack heard Sullivan's low voice comforting the boy, explaining that grown-ups sometimes fought so children could stay safe. Glass shattered somewhere down the street. Then another window closer. The raiders were advancing building by building, systematic and methodical. "They're coming," Martin said, his voice cracking with fear. "Easy, son. Fear's normal. Just breathe through it." Jack checked his sightlines. "Remember, aim center mass squeeze, don't jerk, and stay behind cover. You do that, you'll be fine." "I've never shot at a person before." "Then tonight you learn. Welcome to manhood. It's uglier than they tell you in stories." Movement flickered at the edge of Jack's vision. He swung the Winchester around just as a figure darted between buildings. Too fast for a clean shot. "They're flanking right," he called to Crawford. "2 men, maybe 3. I see them." Crawford fired the blast, deafening in the confined space. "Missed, damn it!" "Don't waste shots. Let them come to us." More movement, now bolder. The raiders were closing in using darkness and cover expertly. Jack counted at least 5 distinct positions, which meant 3 were unaccounted for. Either they'd split their forces, or the back door exploded inward. Martin screamed and fired wildly. A raider burst through, knife flashing. Jack spun and put 2 rounds in the man's chest before he reached Martin. The raider went down, hard, blood spreading across Sullivan's clean floor. "Back door!" Jack yelled. "Barricade it now!" But 2 more raiders poured through the opening. Crawford shot one, but the other got past him, heading for the back room. Heading for the children. Jack didn't think. He dropped the Winchester and drew his Colt in one smooth motion, firing as he moved. The bullet caught the raider in the shoulder, spinning him. Not a kill shot, but enough to slow him. The raider recovered faster than Jack expected, bringing up his own gun. They fired simultaneously. Jack felt something hot score his ribs, a graze painful, but not fatal. His shot hit true, punching through the raider's throat. The man went down gurgling, drowning in his own blood. "Jack," Sullivan's voice sharp with fear. "One got past you." Jack's heart stopped. He sprinted for the back room, reloading on the move. Inside chaos, Sullivan had positioned herself between the children and the doorway, her small pistol aimed with shaking hands. The raider she'd mentioned had Tommy by the arm, using the boy as a shield. "Drop it," the raider said. He was the young one from earlier, the 20-year-old who'd questioned his boss. Up close, Jack could see fear in his eyes. Not a hardened killer, yet still had conscience enough to be scared. "You don't want to do this," Jack said, holstering his Colt slowly. "You're young. You got a chance to walk away from this life, be someone better." "Shut up. I'm taking these kids and you're not stopping me." "Why? Why do you care? You're not like your boss. I can see it. This isn't you." "You don't know nothing about me." But the kid's voice wavered. "I know you questioned him earlier. Know you're having doubts. Know you're not a child killer yet, and there's no coming back from that. You do this, you cross a line. Become the same as the men who made these children orphans." Tommy was crying silently, tears streaming down his face. The raider's grip on him was tight enough to bruise. "I need the money," the kid said. "My family back east, they're starving. This job was supposed to—" He stopped. "It doesn't matter what it was supposed to be. I made my choice." "No, you made several choices that led here. But this moment, this is a new choice. You can let that boy go, walk out that door and ride away. I won't stop you. Won't even tell your boss which way you went." "You're lying." "I don't lie to people trying to do the right thing. And I hope that's what you are." Jack took a slow step forward. "My name's Jack Stone. I failed my own daughter once, watched her die when I should have saved her. Don't make me watch another child die, please." The kid's hand trembled. His gun wavered between Jack and Tommy. Behind him, Lily had picked up Grace's basket, ready to run if necessary. "Your family needs money," Sullivan said suddenly. "Where are they?" "St. Louis. Ma's 6 siblings too young to work." "I can wire funds. Have connections back east, medical contacts who help families in need. Give me their names and address and I'll make sure they're taken care of." "Why would you do that?" "Because Tommy's holding Miss Daisy." Sullivan pointed to the rag doll clutched in the boy's other hand. You grabbed him, but you made sure not to hurt his doll. That tells me you're not heartless, just desperate. And desperation I can work with." The kid looked down at the doll like he'd forgotten he was holding it. His face crumpled. "I don't want to be this. I don't want to kill kids. But the boss said—" "The boss is outside bleeding out from Crawford's bullet." Jack lied smoothly. "Your crew's falling apart. You stay with them, you die with them. Or you make a different choice. They'll hunt me. I betray them, they'll never stop looking. Then you go somewhere they can't follow. Canada, maybe. Or deeper west California territories. Fresh start, new name." Jack held out his hand. "But first you let Tommy go." The kid's eyes darted around the room, calculating odds, weighing options. Then slowly, so slowly, he released Tommy and lowered his gun. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry." Tommy ran to Jack, who scooped him up one-armed while keeping his eyes on the kid. "Back door. Go now. Don't look back." The kid nodded and fled. Jack heard his footsteps pounding away into darkness. "You let him go," Crawford said from the doorway. "He's a witness. Could have told us where they're camped. He's a scared boy who made bad choices. We got enough killing tonight without adding him to the count." Jack set Tommy down gently. "Everyone all right back here?" "Grace slept through it," Sullivan said, checking the baby. "Miracle or shock, I'm not sure which." Lily stared at Jack with wide eyes. "You're bleeding." He looked down. His shirt was soaked red along his left side. "Just a graze. I've had worse." "Let me see." Sullivan pulled his shirt up, examining the wound with professional detachment. "Bullet took a chunk of flesh but missed anything vital. You're lucky." "Story of my life." She cleaned and bandaged him quickly while more gunfire erupted outside. Crawford returned to his position, and Jack followed after Sullivan finished. "How many down?" Jack asked. 3 dead, 1 wounded crawling away. That leaves 3, maybe 4 still active." Crawford reloaded his rifle. "We're holding but barely." "Where's Martin?" "Took a bullet in the leg. Mrs. Fletcher's got him at the church patching him up." So they were down to maybe 10 effective defenders against 3 or 4 raiders who were clearly better trained. Not good odds, but Jack had survived worse. Another hour crawled past. The raiders probed twice more, once at the front, once trying to get on the roof. Both times the defenders drove them back with concentrated fire. But ammunition was running low and exhaustion was setting in. Around midnight, Sullivan brought coffee and bread. Jack accepted gratefully, his hands shaking from adrenaline crash. "Children?" he asked. "Asleep finally. Tommy wouldn't let go of you, so I told him you were magic. Couldn't be killed because you promised. You shouldn't make promises you can't guarantee. Neither should you, but here we are." She sipped her own coffee. "That boy you let go, think he'll really leave?" "I hope so. He's got a chance to be better than this. Question is whether he'll take it. You gave him more mercy than he deserved. Maybe, but I've learned mercy's a strange thing. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But trying costs nothing except pride." Crawford called out, "Movement at the north end. They're regrouping." Jack moved to the window. 4 figures stood in the street, barely visible in moonlight reflecting off snow. The leader was with them. Jack recognized his silhouette. "Stone," the leader called out. "You still alive in there? Still breathing? You lost some good men tonight. You'll pay for that. They died because you ordered them to murder children. That's on you, not me. Philosophical debates ain't why I'm here. I got a proposal." "I'm listening." "Single combat. You and me. Winner takes the children. We settle this like men instead of hiding behind civilians." Jack's jaw tightened. It was tempting to end this quickly one way or another, but also obviously a trap. "What guarantee do I have you'll honor that deal?" Jack called back. "My word." "Your word's worth less than spit." The leader laughed. "Fair point. How about this? Your sheriff holds the children at the church. You and me fight in the street. I win, I take the kids and leave. You win me and my boys right out and never come back. And if you're lying, if I beat you and your boys gun me down anyway, then you'll be dead and won't care. The leader paused. But I give you my word, actual word on my dead mother's grave, that if you beat me, we leave. I'm tired of this, Stone. Good men dying over 3 orphans ain't worth it. Let's end it. Crawford grabbed Jack's arm. Don't. It's a trap. Probably. Then why are you considering it? Because I'm tired too, and because if I don't, they'll keep coming. Tonight, tomorrow, next week. They won't stop until those children are dead. This is the only way to end it permanent. You'll die out there. Maybe. But maybe I won't. Jack checked his Colt 6 rounds, all he'd need. Get the children to the church. Tell Sullivan to keep them there no matter what happens. Jack. That's an order, Sheriff. Do it. Crawford looked like he wanted to argue, but something in Jack's face stopped him. He nodded once and went to gather the children. Jack stepped outside into the cold. Snow crunched under his boots as he walked toward the street's center. The leader did the same, his 3 remaining men staying back but alert. Didn't think you'd actually come, the leader said. Didn't think you'd actually honor your word if I win. Guess we'll find out. The leader positioned himself 20 paces away. Standard rules draw on 3 first-hit wins. You good with that? I'm good with ending this however it ends. You got a death wish, Stone. Had one for 10 years. Recently decided I'd rather live. Jack flexed his gun hand. How about you? What's your excuse for this life? Same as anyone. Money. Power. The thrill of it. The leader shrugged. I'm good at killing. Seems a waste not to use my talents. Talents? Jack shook his head. You're good at murdering defenseless people. That's not talent. That's cowardice with a gun. Think what you want. Won't matter in a minute. They stood in silence 20 paces apart. The world narrowed to this moment, 2 men, old grudges, and the weight of 3 children's lives hanging in the balance. 1, the leader said. Jack's hand hovered near his Colt. He'd practiced this draw 10,000 times, muscle memory so ingrained he could do it blind. But the leader was fast, too. Jack could see it in his stance, his confidence. 2. Jack thought of Emma, of Caroline, of promises broken and chances missed and all the ways he'd failed the people he loved. Then he thought of Lily and Tommy and Grace sleeping at the church, trusting him to keep them safe. 3. They drew. Jack's Colt cleared leather smooth as silk. His thumb pulled the hammer back. His finger found the trigger. The gun roared, bucking in his hand. The leader fired 2 so close their shots sounded like one. Jack felt something tug at his coat, felt heat near his neck. But he was still standing, still breathing. The leader wasn't. The man stood for a moment, confusion on his face, then looked down at the spreading red on his chest. How? He coughed blood. You're not that fast. Fast enough? Jack said quietly. The leader dropped to his knees, then fell forward into the snow. His 3 remaining men rushed forward but stopped when they saw their boss was dead. Deal's a deal, Jack said, keeping his Colt aimed at them. He gave his word. Question is whether you'll honor it. The oldest of the 3, grizzled, scarred, probably in his 50s, spat in the snow. Boss is dead. Contract's void. We got no stake in this anymore. So you're leaving. We're leaving, but Stone. The old raider met his eyes. You made enemies tonight. Black Ridge boys got friends, allies, people who'll hear about this. Killing our boss means there's a price on your head now. Watch your back. I've been watching my back for 20 years. One more threat doesn't change much. The raiders collected their dead and rode out. Jack watched until they disappeared over the ridge, then finally let himself sag. His legs nearly gave out. Crawford ran up, supporting him. You're hit. Grazed, twice in one night. Must be getting old. Old or stupid. Can't decide which. They made it back to the clinic where Sullivan was waiting, medical bag ready. She examined the new wound, a furrow along Jack's neck that had come within an inch of his carotid artery. "You have the devil's own luck," she said, cleaning it. "Another inch and you'd be dead." "Heard that before. Starting to think maybe Emma's watching out for me." "Maybe. Or maybe you're just too stubborn to die properly." Jack laughed, then winced as pain flared. "Don't make me laugh. Hurts." Sullivan finished bandaging him and sat back. "The children. They need to know you're all right. Tommy woke up screaming halfway here, convinced you were dead. I'll go to them." "You'll rest first. You're covered in blood and shaking from adrenaline. Give yourself 5 minutes to be human before you go be their hero again." She was right. Jack sat there letting the enormity of what had just happened wash over him. He'd killed a man in single combat, nearly died twice. And somewhere in the chaos, he'd decided these children were worth dying for. When had that happened? When had 3 strangers become more important than his own survival? He touched the locket under his shirt. Maybe Emma had been watching out for him. Maybe this was her way of telling him it was okay to live again, to love again, to be someone's father, even if that someone wasn't his by blood. "All right," he said, standing carefully. "Let's go see the children." They walked to the church together. Inside, townspeople huddled in pews, exhausted but alive. Mrs. Fletcher saw them and immediately led them to where Lily and Tommy waited. Tommy launched himself at Jack with a sob. "You came back! You came back! Told you I would!" Jack held him tight. "I keep my promises, remember." Lily watched with ancient eyes. "The bad men. Gone for good." "You're sure?" "I'm sure." She nodded once, then did something that shocked him. She hugged him. This tough little girl who'd seen her parents murdered, who'd built walls around her heart to survive, wrapped her arms around Jack's waist and held on like she'd never let go. "Thank you," she whispered, "for not leaving us." Jack's throat closed up. He managed to put his arms around both children, holding them while they cried themselves out. Behind them, Sullivan checked on Grace, who'd somehow slept through everything and was finally showing real signs of improvement. "She's going to make it," Sullivan told them. "Grace is going to be just fine." Lily pulled back, wiping her eyes. "What happens now? Do we have to go to an orphanage?" The question hung in the cold church air. Jack looked at these 3 children, Lily with her fierce protectiveness, Tommy with his quiet fear, Grace with her tiny grip on life. They'd lost everything. They deserved better than being split up and sent to institutions where they'd be numbers instead of people. "No orphanage," Jack heard himself say. "I made a promise to your mama. Promised I'd help you carry your grief. Promised you'd stay together. I aim to keep that promise." "But how? You said you're a bounty hunter. That's no life for kids." "Then I'll change." Jack looked at Crawford. "Town still need a deputy." The sheriff blinked. "You serious?" "Dead serious. You said earlier you needed men who could handle themselves. I can handle myself, and I need a job that lets me stay in one place, raise 3 children proper." "Jack," Sullivan started, "I know what I'm doing. For the first time in 10 years, I actually know what I'm doing." He looked down at Lily and Tommy. "If you'll have me. I'm not your papa, can't ever replace him. But I can be someone who looks after you, keeps you safe, helps you grow up right. If you'll let me." Lily studied him for a long moment. Then she looked at Tommy, and some silent communication passed between them. "Okay," Lily said simply. "But you have to promise one thing." "What's that?" "Never lie to us, even if the truth hurts. We've had enough of people lying to protect our feelings." Jack respected that more than she could know. "I promise. No lies, no matter what." "Then okay. You can be our—" She paused, searching for the right word. "Our guardian." Guardian. Not father, not yet. But maybe someday. Jack could live with that. Crawford cleared his throat. "Well then, Deputy Stone, Welcome to Red River Crossing. Job pays $50 a month plus room and board. Hours are terrible, and the work's dangerous, but the company's decent. I'll take it. Sullivan smiled, and Jack noticed it reached her eyes this time. Congratulations! You just went from drifter to father of 3 in under 48 hours. That might be a record. Father of 3. Jack tested the words. They felt foreign, but not wrong. Lord help us all. Lord and the rest of this town, Mrs. Fletcher said, appearing with blankets. Raising children takes a village, Mr. Stone. You'll have plenty of help whether you want it or not. And standing there in the church, surrounded by people who'd risked their lives for strangers, Jack finally understood what he'd been missing for 10 years. Community. Purpose. Family, not the one you're born into, but the one you build from choices and promises and showing up even when it's hard. Emma would have liked these children. Caroline would have approved. And maybe, just maybe, they'd be proud of the man he was becoming. Not the broken drifter who couldn't save his family, but the guardian who'd saved someone else's. It was a start. And sometimes a start was all you needed. The first week was chaos. Jack had lived alone for 10 years, answering to nobody, doing what he pleased, moving when the mood struck. Now he woke to crying babies at 3 in the morning, and questions from a 6-year-old who seemed to never sleep, and a 4-year-old who had nightmares that left him screaming for parents who'd never answer. Sullivan had loaned them space above her clinic while Jack figured out permanent housing. It was cramped one room with a curtain dividing sleeping areas, but it was warm and safe and more home than Jack had known in a decade. Grace won't eat, Lily said on the third morning, worry etched across her young face. She just keeps spitting it out. Jack took the bottle and examined it. The milk looked fine, but maybe the nipple was wrong, or the temperature off, or any of 100 things he didn't understand about babies. I'll get the doc, he said. Sullivan appeared moments later, examining Grace with practiced efficiency. She's teething. It hurts to suck. We need to soften her food more, maybe add a bit of honey to make it appealing. How do you know all this? Medical school, also common sense. She prepared a new bottle while Jack held Grace. You're going to need to learn this, Jack. I can't be on call every time one of them sneezes. I know, I'm trying. Try harder. These children need competence, not good intentions. Her bluntness stung, but Jack recognized truth when he heard it. He'd spent 10 years being responsible for nobody but himself. Now 3 lives depended on him not screwing up, and he was terrified of the 1,000 ways he could fail them. Tommy appeared from behind the curtain, rubbing sleep from his eyes. Is Grace sick? Just teething. She'll be fine. Mama used to rub whiskey on our gums when we teached. Said it helped. Sullivan raised an eyebrow. Not the worst folk remedy I've heard, though I'd recommend something less alcoholic. She produced a small jar. Clove oil. Works better and won't get the baby drunk. Tommy watched as Sullivan applied the oil to Grace's gums. The baby's crying subsided almost immediately, and she started taking the bottle. You're magic, Tommy said with absolute conviction. Not magic, just educated. But Sullivan smiled at him. Want to learn? I could use an assistant sometimes. Tommy's face lit up. Really, I could help. If your guardian approves. She looked at Jack. Children learn best when they feel useful. Might give him purpose beyond grief. Jack nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. This woman who'd started as a stranger was now offering to teach he caught himself to teach Tommy. Was helping raise children who weren't hers out of pure goodness. I'd appreciate that, ma'am, he managed. Call me Becca. We're going to be seeing a lot of each other. Might as well dispense with formalities. That afternoon, Crawford found Jack at the clinic and handed him a deputy badge. Made it official with the territorial governor's office. Your law now, Stone. Try not to shoot anyone unless they really deserve it. Jack pinned the badge to his shirt, feeling its weight. It had been 20 years since he'd worn a badge, back when he was a Texas Ranger before the war, before everything went wrong. back when he'd believed law and order actually meant something. "What's my first assignment?" he asked. "Learning to be a father. Rest can wait." Crawford clapped his shoulder. "Take a week. Get those children settled. Town's not going anywhere, and neither are the criminals." But Jack couldn't sit still. Inactivity had never suited him, and now with 3 children watching his every move, he needed to prove he could provide. He started working fixing fences for Mrs. Fletcher, helping the blacksmith with odd jobs, doing anything that paid a few dollars. Lily followed him everywhere, observing with those ancient eyes. "You don't have to work so hard," she said one afternoon while Jack repaired a broken wagon wheel. "We don't need much. You need food, clothes, medicine. That costs money. We also need you, not just your money." Jack paused mid-hammer stroke. "What do you mean? You're always working, always busy. Like if you stop moving, something bad will happen." She picked at a splinter on the wheel. "Papa was like that after we lost the house in Kansas. Worked so hard he forgot to be with us. Then he died and all that work didn't matter." The observation hit harder than any bullet. Jack set down the hammer and looked at this 6-year-old who saw too much. "You're right," he admitted. "I'm scared. Scared of failing you 3. Scared of not being enough. So I work because at least that's something I know how to do." "But we don't need you to be perfect. We just need you to be here." Lily's voice was matter-of-fact, not accusatory. "Grace won't remember if we were poor. Tommy won't care if our house is fancy. I won't mind hand-me-down clothes. But we'll all remember if you're too busy working to actually be our guardian." Jack pulled her close, this wise little girl who'd lost everything and still had the courage to tell hard truths. "When did you get so smart?" "Mama used to say I was born old. Said my soul had been here before and remembered things others forgot." "What do you remember?" "That love matters more than money. That being present matters more than being perfect." She looked up at him. "Do you love us, Jack? Or are we just a duty, a way to make up for Emma?" The question should have been impossible for a 6-year-old to ask, but Lily had earned the right to directness. Jack thought about lying, giving her the easy answer. But he'd promised no lies. "I don't know yet," he said honestly. "I care about you 3. I want to keep you safe. But love? That takes time. You can't force it just because you want to feel it." "That's fair." Lily seemed satisfied with his honesty. "But you'll tell us when you figure it out." "I'll tell you." She nodded and went back to watching him work. But something had shifted. Jack realized she'd been testing him, checking if he'd lie to make her feel better or tell the truth, even when it was hard. And he'd passed. That evening, Sullivan invited them to dinner at her clinic. She'd made stew hearty and warm and fresh bread that Tommy devoured like he'd been starving. "Growing boy," Sullivan observed. "He'll eat you out of house and home in a few years." "Looking forward to it," Jack said, and meant it. After dinner, Sullivan pulled him aside while the children played with wooden blocks she'd found somewhere. "You're doing better than you think." "Doesn't feel like it. Feel like I'm stumbling through darkness." "That's called parenting. Nobody knows what they're doing. We all just pretend and hope we don't break anything important." "Comforting. Not meant to be comforting. Meant to be honest." She poured coffee for them both. "You're adapting, learning, showing up. That's more than most men would do." "Why are you helping us? You don't owe us anything." Sullivan was quiet for a moment. "Because I see myself in you. Someone running from pain, trying to outwork grief. When William died, I threw myself into medicine. Came west to escape memories. Spent 5 years treating everyone else while ignoring my own wounds." She gestured to the children. "They saved me as much as you saved them. Gave me purpose beyond just existing. So we're both broken people trying to fix each other." Something like that. Though I prefer to think we're building something new from the pieces of what broke. Jack considered that. Building something new. Not trying to recreate what he'd lost with Caroline and Emma, but creating something different. something that honored the past while embracing the present. "Lily asked me today if I loved them," he said quietly. "I told her I didn't know yet." That was brave and honest. She deserved honesty, but now I keep thinking, what if I never love them? What if I'm too broken to love anyone again? Then you'll care for them anyway. Love isn't the only foundation for family. Commitment, respect, showing up, those matter just as much. Sullivan met his eyes. "But for what it's worth, I think you're already halfway there. You just don't recognize it yet." "How do you know?" "Because you're terrified of failing them. You only fear failing people you love." Her words stayed with him through the following days. Jack watched himself interact with the children, looking for signs of love. Did he love them when he woke at 3 a.m. to feed Grace? When he read to Tommy despite being exhausted? When he braided Lily's hair, even though he had no idea what he was doing? Or was it just duty, just going through motions because he'd promised? The answer came unexpectedly 2 weeks after the raid. Jack was walking Main Street with Tommy running errands. The boy chattered constantly about everything and nothing. Birds, clouds, why snow was white. Jack listened with half an ear, his mind on the grocery list Mrs. Fletcher had given him. Then Tommy darted into the street. Jack saw the wagon before Tommy did, loaded with lumber horses spooked by something. Heading straight for the boy at full gallop. Jack didn't think. He lunged, grabbing Tommy and rolling them both clear. The wagon thundered past so close he felt wind from the wheels. They landed hard in the snow, Jack's body covering Tommy's. For a moment, neither moved. Then Tommy started crying. Not hurt, just scared. I'm sorry, I didn't see." "Shh, you're okay, you're safe." Jack held him tight, heart hammering so hard he thought it might explode. The terror he'd felt seeing Tommy in danger was visceral, absolute. The same terror he'd felt watching his house burn with Emma inside. That's when he knew. He loved this boy. Loved all three of them. Not because he'd decided to, not because it was duty, but because at some point between finding them in that train wreckage and this moment they'd become his. His children. His family. The realization should have terrified him. Instead, it felt like coming home. That night, after the children were asleep, Jack took out the locket he'd worn for 10 years. Caroline and Emma smiled up at him from the tiny photographs frozen in time, forever young and happy. "I met someone," he told their images. 3 someones, actually. Children who needed help. "I tried to stay detached, tried to just do my duty, but I failed." He traced Emma's face with his thumb. "I love them, Caroline. And I feel guilty about that, like I'm betraying you both by caring about someone else." The photographs didn't answer, but Jack imagined what Caroline would say. She'd tell him he was being ridiculous, that love wasn't finite, that caring about these children didn't diminish what he'd felt for Emma. She'd tell him Emma would want him happy. He closed the locket but didn't take it off. The past was part of him, would always be part of him, but it didn't have to control his future. The next morning, Jack woke to find Lily sitting by the window watching snowfall. "Can't sleep?" he asked, thinking about Mama and Papa, wondering if they'd be proud of us, of me. Jack sat beside her. "They'd be incredibly proud. You've taken care of your siblings, stayed strong through impossible circumstances. You're remarkable, Lily." "But I'm not always strong. Sometimes I cry. Sometimes I'm scared. Sometimes I want to just give up." That's called being human. Strength isn't never falling apart. It's falling apart and putting yourself back together afterward. He paused. "Yesterday you asked me if I loved you 3. Want to know the answer?" She turned to him, hope and fear warring in her eyes. "What is it?" "Yes, I love you. All 3 of you. Took me a while to realize it, but it's true." "Really?" Her voice was small. "You're not just saying that. I promised no lies. Remember, this is truth. You're my family now." Lily launched herself at him, crying into his shirt. "I love you too, and Tommy does. Even Grace, when you hold her, she calms down faster than with anyone else." Jack held her, feeling pieces of his broken heart slot back into place. Not healed, maybe never fully healed, but functional, capable of love again. Tommy appeared, rubbing his eyes. "Why's Lily crying?" "Happy tears," Jack said. "Come here, son." Tommy climbed onto Jack's lap, and they sat there as a family, watching dawn break over Red River Crossing. The town was starting to wake, smoke rising from chimneys, people emerging to start their day. Normal life continuing despite tragedy and loss and all the ways the world could break you. "I've been thinking about names," Lily said eventually. "Our last name." "What about it?" "It's Carson, from Papa. But Papa's gone, and Carson's just a reminder of what we lost." She looked up at him. "Could we be Stones instead? Like you?" The question stole Jack's breath. Taking his name would make them officially his, not just guardianship, but family. Forever. "That's a big decision," he managed. "You sure?" "I'm sure. Tommy, what do you think?" "I want to be like Jack," Tommy said immediately. "Be brave and strong and protect people." "Grace doesn't get a vote because she's a baby," Lily continued with 6-year-old logic. "But I think she'd agree. So yes, we want to be Stones." Jack looked at these 3 children who'd lost everything and somehow still had courage to build something new. They were offering him a gift, the chance to be someone's father again. The chance to do it right this time. "All right," he said. "We'll make it legal. Get the papers filed. Lily Stone, Tommy Stone, Grace Stone. And Jack Stone," Lily added. "Our guardian, our family." "Our Papa," Tommy said quietly. The word hung in the air. Jack had thought he'd never hear it again, had convinced himself he didn't deserve to. But Tommy said it with such simple conviction, like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Your Papa," Jack agreed, voice rough. "If you'll have me." "We will," Lily said firmly. "But you have to promise one more thing." "What's that?" "No more working yourself to death. No more running from feelings. You're ours now, which means you have to actually be present. Deal." Jack laughed through tears he didn't bother hiding. "Deal." Over the next month, they settled into routine. Jack worked reasonable hours as deputy, making sure to be home for dinner. Sullivan continued teaching Tommy about medicine while keeping Grace healthy. Lily started school, where she immediately became teachers' favorite for her quick mind and quicker wit. The town embraced them. Mrs. Fletcher provided meals when Jack was overwhelmed. Crawford taught Tommy to whittle. Becca became more than their doctor. She became family. The aunt who spoiled them and gave Jack parenting advice he desperately needed. Jack still had nightmares sometimes. Still woke in cold sweat, convinced the house was burning and Emma was screaming. But now when he woke, he could hear 3 children breathing safely in the next room. Could remind himself that this time he'd gotten it right. Spring came slowly to Wyoming snow, reluctant to release its grip. But eventually, warmth won, and green things started pushing through frozen earth. Jack took the children to the cemetery where John and Mary Carson were buried. "We brought flowers," Lily said, placing wildflowers on the graves. "Mama liked wildflowers." "Tell me about your parents," Jack said. "What were they like?" Lily and Tommy shared stories about their father's booming laugh, their mother's gentle hands, the dreams they'd had of California, and fresh starts. Grace gurgled happily, unaware she was visiting parents she'd never remember. "Do you think they'd approve?" Lily asked. "Of you raising us?" Jack looked at the simple wooden crosses marking John and Mary Carson's final rest. "I hope so. I'm trying to honor what they started. Give you the life they wanted for you." "You're doing good," Tommy said. "Papa would like you. You're both stubborn." They stood there until the sun began setting, then walked home together. Home, that word had meaning again. Not a place, but a feeling. Safety. Belonging. Love. That evening, Jack pinned his deputy badge on and headed out for night patrol. Crawford joined him and they walked the quiet streets in comfortable silence. "You've changed," Crawford observed. Since you got here. Softer somehow, but also stronger.
That.
Having children will do that. They simultaneously make you vulnerable and give you reason to be invincible. Planning to stay, make Red River crossing permanent. Jack thought about that. 6 weeks ago, he'd have said no, would have insisted he was just passing through doing a good deed before moving on. But now, yeah, he said. Yeah, I'm staying. This is home now. Good, town's better with you in it. Crawford paused. Becca's better too. She smiles more, seems lighter. We're just friends. Sure you are, and I'm the King of England. Crawford chuckled. You're both broken people who found each other at the right time. Nothing wrong with that becoming something more. Jack didn't respond, but Crawford's words stuck with him. He and Becca had developed an easy companionship built on mutual respect and shared responsibility for the children. But was it more than that? He thought about how his heart lifted when she smiled, how he looked forward to their evening conversations, how right it felt when they worked together caring for the children, moving in synchronized rhythm like they'd been doing it for years. Maybe Crawford was right. Maybe something was growing between them. And maybe after 10 years of being alone, Jack was finally ready for that. 2 months after the raid, Red River Crossing held its spring festival. The whole town turned out for food music and celebration of surviving another brutal winter. Jack watched Lily and Tommy play with other children, their laughter pure and unself-conscious. Grace sat on a blanket, fascinated by grass and flowers she'd never seen before. They looked happy, looked like children instead of trauma survivors. Becca sat beside him, her shoulder touching his. You did this, she said quietly. Gave them childhood back. We did this. Couldn't have managed without you. True, I am pretty essential. She smiled. Jack, I've been thinking. Dangerous activity. Shut up and listen. I've been thinking about the future, about what I want. And I realized I want this family we've accidentally built. You, me, the children. I want it permanent. Jack's heart hammered. What are you saying? I'm saying I love those children like they're mine. And I'm saying I might love you too, though I'm terrified to admit it, because what if it's just convenience or gratitude or... Jack kissed her. It wasn't planned, wasn't smooth. Just a desperate need to stop her spiral of doubt and show her he felt the same way. When they pulled apart, Becca looked stunned. That was... overdue. Jack finished. I love you too. Probably have for weeks, but was too stupid to recognize it. We're quite a pair. 2 emotionally damaged people playing house with 3 traumatized children. Best pair I've ever been part of. Lily appeared, hands on hips. Are you 2 finally done being dumb? Tommy and I have a bet on how long it would take you to figure out you like each other. How long did you bet? Jack asked. I said 1 month. Tommy said 2. Looks like he wins. She grinned. Does this mean Becca's going to be our mama? Becca looked at Jack, question in her eyes. He nodded slightly, giving permission. If you'll have me, Becca said to Lily. I know I can't replace your mother. Nobody can replace Mama, but that doesn't mean we can't have someone new to love. Lily threw her arms around Becca. Yes. Yes, you can be our mama. Tommy ran over demanding hugs. Grace reached for Becca with chubby hands. And Jack stood there watching his accidental family become official, feeling gratitude so profound it bordered on religious. 6 months ago, he'd been a broken man with nothing to live for. Now he had everything: children who called him Papa, a woman who loved him, a purpose beyond mere survival. They married in the fall, a simple ceremony at the church with the whole town attending. Lily and Tommy stood up with them as witnesses. Grace slept through the entire thing, snoring softly in Mrs. Fletcher's arms. Do you take this woman, Reverend Mitchell asked, to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do, Jack said, and meant it with every fiber of his being. And do you take this man? I do, Becca interrupted. Absolutely I do. They sealed it with a kiss while the congregation cheered. Lily and Tommy threw flower petals. Grace woke up and started crying, because of course she did. And Jack Stone, former drifter, broken father man, who'd thought himself beyond redemption, laughed with pure joy. That night, after the children were asleep in their new home, a proper house Crawford had helped them build, Jack and Becca sat on the porch, watching stars emerge. "No regrets?" she asked. "Not a single one. You." "Only that I didn't find you sooner." Jack pulled out his locket, the one he'd carried for 10 years. He opened it, showing Becca the photographs of Caroline and Emma. "They're beautiful," she said softly. "They were, and they'll always be part of me. But they're past and you're present. You and Lily and Tommy and Grace, you're mine now, my future. We can honor both. Love doesn't have to be either or." "No," Jack agreed. "It doesn't." He closed the locket, but kept it around his neck. The past had shaped him, taught him, broken him. But it didn't define him anymore. He was more than the man who'd failed his family. He was the man who'd saved another family, who'd chosen love over fear, who'd built something beautiful from ashes and snow, and 3 children who'd needed saving as much as he had. Years later, when people asked Jack Stone how he'd ended up in Red River Crossing with a family he loved, he'd tell them the truth. About a blizzard and a train wreckage and 3 children who shouldn't have survived but did. About promises made to a dying mother and kept despite impossible odds. About a doctor who taught him to live again and a town that gave him belonging. But mostly, he'd tell them about choice. About how every day he chose to be present. Chose to love. Chose to be the father Emma had lost and the father Lily, Tommy, and Grace deserved. Because in the end, that's what mattered. Not the tragedies that broke you, but what you built from the pieces. Not the promises you failed to keep, but the ones you honored despite everything. Not the family you lost, but the family you chose to create. Jack Stone had spent 10 years running from love, convinced he didn't deserve it. But 3 children in a snowstorm had taught him different. Had shown him that sometimes salvation doesn't come from deserving it. It comes from being willing to fight for it, to work for it, to show up day after day, even when it's hard. He'd found them in blood and ash and frozen desperation, and they'd found him at the exact moment they all needed finding. Maybe that was providence. Maybe that was luck. Or maybe it was just the universe finally getting something right. Either way, Jack Stone was done running. He'd found his home, his family, his purpose. And this time he'd get it right. Because he'd promised. And Jack Stone kept his promises. Always.